Very much for tuning in. Schaefer and Sliwa show today, solo today. Schaefer made it happen yesterday. I'm making it happen today. We are definitely we're juggling a little bit. That's our goal today, is to juggle a little bit. So hopefully everybody's doing good. Obviously, we got a lot to talk about, a lot to get into, and a lot of it obviously cleared or around the San Diego Padres. We'll talk, of course, about the World Cup, USA being eliminated yesterday. So we got a lot of different stuff to get into. Kevin Acey is going to join the show. Looking forward to having him a part of the show and the broadcast. We got Jackson Feltz as well, who's an iHeart World Cup broadcaster, also part of the Seattle Sounders. He's going to join us. He's doing a lot of work around the World Cup, talking about how USA got embarrassed yesterday against Belgium. Got to be honest with you, I don't think I'm too shocked or surprised. That just kind of comes with USA men's soccer. So I'm accustomed to that, as many other people are. Eric Pincus, 5 o'clock, will join us from Bleacher Report, and we are going to talk some NBA. We're going to talk a lot about what's going on around the league, where LeBron's going to end up, and everything else. Of course, we got to start the show. We're going to talk about the San Diego Padres. So, Brett, it's funny, man. Just kind of listening to a lot of the Padres chatter. Obviously, John and I do a lot of content. I think Schaefer probably does the most Padres content of anybody in the market. Just all the podcasts he does. He does a 3-hour show and everything else. And I'm trying to figure out, when we have the conversation, should they be buyers? And they got to address a couple starting pitchers they need, and then the hitting's a problem, and this and that. Watching this team play on a day in, day out basis, I grew up in San Diego, so I'm obviously a Padres fan my entire life. I don't really know, and I know there has been there. I know we all get kind of caught up in the moment, but I don't know if I've seen a team as frustrating as this year's. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, of course, 2023, when your lineup is as stacked as much as it is, I know there's worse Padres seasons to have, but watching this team night in and night out, it's like I'm hoping for a different result, even though I know exactly what's going to happen. Every single night I watch the Padres, I know exactly what's going to happen. I'm gonna go through a couple different things here, because a lot of people have said this is arguably the most important stretch of the year for the San Diego Padres. There was about 20 games left before the All-Star break, and they had Atlanta, then they had a 3-game set against the Dodgers, and then it was, who am I missing in between? It's the series against the Cubs, and then a 4-game set in LA, and then it's Arizona, it's Toronto, and then you get to the All-Star break. And I get why everybody's saying, hey, this is it. This is arguably this is the stretch that it's going to come down to for San Diego, in order more than anything else, just to determine, basically just to determine this team is worth spending any more assets on or spending any more resources on. So far over that stretch, the 20-game stretch that we were talking about, they're 5-9 and there's 6 games left. Let me also remind you, they started out that 20-game stretch going 4-0. So they swept the Atlanta Braves. People will say, the Braves are injured, or Sale didn't pitch, or whatever. It didn't matter. The Padres went 3-0. They swept them, took the first game against the Dodgers, and you're like, is it possibly going to change? The answer is no, it's not going to change. They're 1-9 in their last 10 games. And I'm going to wait on yesterday's game against the Arizona Diamondbacks, which might have been the most lifeless that I've seen the San Diego Padres this year. And that's not easy, because there's plenty of games that I can go back to that and say, no, this is one of the worst losses of the year. Or, you know what, this one was important, they did nothing. Or they lost 23-3. Like I can go off of plenty of games. I mean, hell, I could just point out the Dodger games, and some of those are some of the most gut-wrenching losses that the Padres have had. But 5-9 with 6 games remaining over that 20-game stretch. And there's no indication to me that, it's going to get better. It is baseball. I understand the term. A lot of people use it. A lot of people say it. Maybe it is just baseball, and they go 5-1 in their last 6 games here, and they're able to kind of salvage this thing and make it a 10-10 stretch in the final 20 games before we get to the All-Star break. And maybe they can sell A.J. Preller over this course of this last handful stretch of games. I know the All-Star game is going to come, and there's a little bit of time after that as well. But let me just kind of give everyone a quick idea where they're sitting. All right? So this is going to paint a picture for everybody. And if I sound a little doom and gloom, it's because I am. I'm not trying to apologize for it as well. I'm trying to be honest with everybody here. And hopefully if you're a Padre fan or you're somebody here in San Diego that's listening to the show, hopefully you appreciate the honesty, because that's all I'm trying to be. Here's where the Padres sit in the NL. They're 2 games below 500. They're 44-46. They are now 4.5 games out of a wild card spot. Think about where they've been hovering all season long and where they sit today. Now 4.5 games out of a wild card spot. Here are how many teams that are in front of them outside of the division leaders. Take out the Dodgers, take out the Brewers, take out the Braves. Chicago, Philly, Miami, St. Louis, Washington, Pittsburgh, and Arizona. There are 7 teams in front of them for those 3 wildcard spots, and some of them comfortably in front. Like some of them, we could almost start getting into that territory where it's like, yeah, it ain't a conversation. I mean, the Cubbies, they have, how many games is it? A 6-game advantage on the pot. There's some conversations I don't even want to have. Not to say that other teams can't go down, other teams can't fall or anything like that. But when you have 7 teams in front of you, you need a lot of squads to start faltering. So I'm going to point out a couple other things as we go here. So they're 11th place in the NL. They're 4.5 games back from Miami. They've lost 9 of their last 10 games, which I mentioned. And also something to just keep in mind here, they don't hold tiebreakers over Philly, Chicago, or St. Louis. Those are the 3 teams, 3 of the teams that are in front of them. Obviously, there's a handful of teams. What'd they go? I think they went 0-6 against Philadelphia. St. Louis, 3-5, maybe something like that, or 3-4. I know they lost that set of games as well, and then Chicago also beat them as well. So on top of that, the amount of teams, I was telling Schaefer this last week, I'm like, John, there's another team that just leapfrogged the Padres. He's like, yeah, I know. Whichever team. It was like, all right, at the time it was like, all right, Miami's now in front of them, and it's like now Washington's in front of them. How the hell Pittsburgh get in front of them? Arizona beating the Padres yesterday. Arizona is now in front of them as well. It's a tough team to watch. It is a very, very difficult team to watch and to cover. You know, I kind of sit in a more unique position, and I do it on purpose because that's how I'd rather cover a team. I'm a fan of the San Diego Padres. I'm from San Diego, so I enjoy covering the San Diego Padres. The first time I've ever done it as part of my profession, and I'm glad that I can sit in a seat where we could talk about them on a day-to-day basis. The problem with that is I'm a fan. So when I'm watching these games, I'm trying to be very, very objective, but at the same time, I can't take the fandom out, nor do I want to take the fandom out. This is exactly how I want to cover the San Diego Padres. That's a difficult watch on a day-to-day basis. I didn't, last show John and I did was on Thursday because we had Friday off. So that whole 4-game set against the Dodgers, John and I didn't react to, right after the game. Now John does because he does, obviously his other shows and everything else. This is the first time I grabbed a mic since Thursday. So I got 4 out of their last 5 games with L's and some of the most excruciating losses that you could possibly think of. Up 6-0 in a game and lose 12-7 in LA. What? Up 3-0 with Michael King pitching a gem, only to see a Cronenworth error and then a Teoscar Hernandez grand slam off Adrian Morejon. What? I don't even want to get to yesterday's game because, like I said, that one to me is the most lifeless baseball I've seen from the Padres this year. What are they? I'll tell you what they are. I'll give you a good idea of what they are. They are not a team that I would invest a dime in if this is what you got through about 70 games left, something along those lines. If you told me right now, you got to make a decision. They're 44-46. And if everyone wants to keep having the conversation about the trade deadline got to go get this player, got to go get that player. This guy is going to be imperative. And if you don't go get that pitcher, and if this bat's missing, and everybody goes down the list of all these different things that they need. Based off of what I've seen through these 100 games or so, getting closer to 100 games, I think it would tell just a lot about this franchise and where the front office is if they start investing more into this team. They're not a playoff team. They don't look like a playoff team. They don't act like a playoff team. There's no consistency on this team. By the way, I'm going to give them this as well, and this happens to teams that are not playoff teams. They're also injured as hell. Like, they also got a lot of key players that have been in and out of the lineup, which I'm not making an excuse for, but there are some excuses for them as well. The Pivetta injury was by far, the most crucial injuries that the Padres could have had. But then go past Pivetta for a quick second. How long was Cronenworth out for? Jason Adam is now out. Jeremiah Estrada has been out. Fermin back on concussion protocol or because of his concussion. Luis Camposano when he was playing well. Musgrove we haven't seen since 2024. Ramon Laureano, I forgot Laureano was injured. That's how many injuries they have. Randy Vasquez is now on the IL. It's been a tough watch. And let's do this when we come back. And if you guys want to be a part of the show, obviously always encourage you guys to call in. I'm sure we got a lot of YouTube comments, which I'll take a look at the break, and we'll take a look at that. But the phone number is 877-767-4760. I don't see a team that you should be investing anything else into. I just don't see anything about this team that tells me they're a playoff team. We'll talk about it more coming up next. Stay right here. San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app. This is Schaefer and Sliwa. All right, DraftKings is live in all 50 states. Yes, that means you, California, win or go home. That's it. That's the knockout round, and DraftKings has you covered for every single match. The DraftKings app is now live in California, so whether you're catching the early kickoff before work or the late match at a bar, you're in on every minute, every match, every moment, all in one app. Right here in California, the world's biggest stage is in the palm of your hand. New DraftKings customers, sign up with the code SD760. Spend $5 to get 200 in total rewards over 21 days. That's code SD760 in partnership with DraftKings. The crown is yours. Event trading offered by DraftKings Predictions, a CFTC registered introducing broker. Trader involves risk of loss. Market availability varies. Eligibility restrictions apply. $50 every 7 days via click to claim issued in non-withdrawable prediction dollars that expire in 1 year. Ends July 19th. Terms, just visit dkng.com/predictions promo. All right, starting Monday, July 13th, San Diego Sports 760 has 9 chances to win $1,000 every weekday with a bonus Bucks giveaway. That's every hour, 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. starting Monday, July 13th. Listen for the keyword, then enter it at sportsst.com. Starting Monday, July 13th at 9 a.m. Okay, a couple things, just kind of a heads up here to give everyone an idea of the show. We're going to have Kevin Acee is going to join the show coming up at 3:30. And we'll talk really, let's be blunt here, just the debacle of the San Diego Padres. Lost 9 of their last 10 games, are plummeting in the standings, and their chances of a wild card berth. I know it's early. I know people are going to say, oh, there's a lot of baseball left. I don't know what team you guys are watching. I'm not watching a baseball team. So if you want to make a case that they're a wild card squad, go ahead and feel free to do so. I don't see it. Jackson Feltz, who is covering the World Cup, part of the iHeart World Cup broadcasters, also covers the Seattle Sounders. Obviously, all the attention now on the World Cup. He's going to give us just what happened yesterday versus Belgium. Would you consider the USA run a success? I would not. I'll do that a little bit later in the show. He's going to join us around 4 o'clock, and then Eric Pink is coming up at 5. So let's go back to the Padres real quick. You know, I intentionally was trying not to talk about yesterday's game because I felt like I had so many other things that I can talk about leading up to yesterday's game. And I think I'm now ready to talk a little bit about last night's game. You know, Brent, let me ask you this question, and I think you're a perfect person to ask. You're going to be as objective as possible. You're going to give your thoughts on what you're watching, and you have no reason to not give the Padres their due credit, and you have no reason not to be, you know, one where it's like, the emotion is getting in the way. No, you're going to give us your opinion about it. Does this look anything like a playoff team to you? Does this again? I'll say what I said a little bit earlier. They have had some really bad injuries that have affected this team and affected the flow of this team. And I'm sure it has definitely also hurt them in the standings. But watching them night in and night out, does this look anything like a playoff team to you?
I told John yesterday that the thing with this team is, and it's essentially been the Padres for the past like 4 or 5 years,
okay,
is you can't really pinpoint them, because whenever we count them out and think they're done, they'll win like 8 out of 10, and then we'll be like, oh, okay, they're back. This is more, you know, this is trending towards what they are really like, and then they'll lose 9 out of 10. So every time we think, you know, I brought up I think it was a Roddy Piper quote of every time you think you have the answers, I'm going to change the questions. And that's kind of what I feel it is with this Padres team, is whenever we're ready to say, okay, they're done, then they'll go on some hot streak to make it so that we're kind of on the fence a little bit. So we don't know if they should buy or they should sell, or if, you know, it's hard to gauge what they really are.
Okay, tell me if this is different to you than prior years, because I'm with you. There's a little bit of like, all right, you know where I actually thought for a quick second. So all of a sudden they're playing the Atlanta Braves. And it's like, why would I have any confidence in them playing Atlanta? But I remember telling John, I'm like, you know, John, I wouldn't be surprised if they win 2 or 3 from the Braves. Okay, whatever. It happens. They sweep Atlanta. They take the first one against the Dodgers. They start out 4-0 over this like critical 20-game stretch. And then just bam, they've lost 9 of 10. And how they're losing, I think, says something. I mean, it's sloppy. I've said this with John a number of different times. I'm okay with losing because your team is playing hard. Maybe there just isn't enough talent. Maybe you face a pitcher where all of a sudden it's like, hey, look, this is one of the best pitchers in baseball. You're going back and forth. Maybe they had one more clutch hit than you. They play ugly baseball. Like there's just even the fundamentals of the game is where I think this is a little bit different than previous years. I hope you're right. And you can answer that question better than anybody else, because you said in previous years, every time you've counted them out. I'm going to give you one stat here. See if I could find it here on the fly. I was looking a little bit earlier. See if I have it here. I can't find it exactly, but since they started the season out, 18-8 was, I want to say, the high water mark for the Padres, maybe 19-9. They were 10 or 11 games over 500. Doing the math, since that 18-8 stretch, they're 26-38. They're 12 games below 500. Isn't that who they are? Aren't they the 26-38 team, much more than the 18-8 team? I don't think there's a middle ground. Like, I just watching them day in and day out. And for some people who think this is the barometer or it isn't, they are a negative 50 run differential up to this year. Negative 50. The only team that has a negative run differential and is in that playoff picture is the Phillies. They're -7 and still, obviously 9 games over 500, but Philly's got guys that mash the ball. They got arguably one of the best pitcher in baseball. I mean, I can make an argument. I still don't understand how the Phillies are -7. But with all that in mind, does it seem different than in previous years when you've said, hey, I feel like every time I count them out, they come back? Or do you think it's similar?
I think it's the same because they're just hanging around. Since I've been here, I think there's been and I've been here almost 10 years now. There's been maybe 1 or 2 seasons where when we get to the trade deadline, it's been 100% written in the sand. We're buyers or sellers. Most of the time we're kind of on, like I said, we're kind of on the fence like we are now, to where we don't know if we should be buyers and we don't know if we should be sellers. And, like I always bring up that year when I think they should have traded Hader and all those guys because we weren't going to do anything and they weren't going to re-sign, and we essentially just let them go for nothing instead of getting something back in return. So I don't know. I'll ask you the same thing I asked John yesterday. What's your magic number? How many games out of the wild card do they have to be before you're just like, okay, it's done?
Well, I think for me, it's a little deeper than that. I don't think there's a magic number, but they're 90 games in, and they should not be buyers. Like, they're just, I don't know what to tell you. If I'm just assessing the Padres 90 games in, let me look at their highest highs and their lowest lows. Is this a team that I think that the Padres, that AJ Preller in the front office should be investing in? 90 games in, I don't think I can make an argument that they should be investing into them. Maybe you can say, listen, if you can go get one starter, then Nick Pivetta is eventually going to come back. Like, there has to be so many layers to it for me to say, yeah, I think this is a team that you should invest in. Brother, I heard so many people leading up to yesterday's game against Arizona saying, like, this is the most important series coming in. This is so critical against the Diamondbacks. By the way, I don't even know if it's critical against the Diamondbacks. I don't matters who you're playing at this point. They just need wins. I get it, because Arizona, you would technically be fighting for a wild card spot. But are they going to be fighting with Arizona? I mean, hell, there might be 4 or 5 teams better than the Arizona Diamondbacks. So as I sit here today, it's very, very difficult. A team that, hey, this is an important game. This is an important series. They got their asses kicked yesterday, 8-0. I mean, some people aren't even sitting down grabbing a beer yet and parking at Petco, and the game's already 6-0. They got a long way to go. Let's just put it that way. All right. Well, a lot of positivity on my end. I'm sure people are really happy to hear me break down the San Diego Padres on this wonderful afternoon. Kevin Acey is going to help me out with this. We're going to talk to Kevin Acey coming up next. We'll get his thoughts. He had a great article this morning breaking everything down about the Padres, and we'll continue to have this conversation. I thought there was some interesting sound from MLB TV talking about Mason Miller and do the Padres make a move? Are they can they not make a move at this point because they're so already far in with all these contracts? We'll do all that coming up next. Stay right here. I'm Alan Sleewood. Schaefer out today. This is San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app. What's up, y'all? You guys hear me? Everybody got me here? Holy Jesus. A lot going on in a solo show. Hope you guys are good. Thanks for hanging out here. Appreciate it. Let's see what we have here. I'll try to read some of these. If you guys got a question you want to throw out to AC, lob it in. See if I can get it into the mix here. I think you guys hear me. I think. So I'll see you guys here in a little bit. All right, my people. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out. It's lovely, wonderful people watching me absolutely rip into the Padres. It's been so bad, man. It's been so bad. All right, you guys got a question for AC? Throw it in the mix. Let me try to get one over to him. All right, y'all.
This report is sponsored by Taco Bell. The Padres and Diamondbacks are getting set for game at 2 of their series tonight down at Petco Park. It's going to be Zach Gallen going for Arizona and Herman Marquez going for the Friars. First pitch is set for 6:40. World Cup, we've got one final from earlier. Argentina came back and defeated Egypt 3-2. And right now, Colombia and Switzerland are in extra time, and there's still no score. Taco Bell's new jalapeno citrus salsa, bright, spicy, zesty, impossible to ignore. It brings main character energy to every bite. Not just a sauce, it's a star. Only at Taco Bell at participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time only while supplies last.
Always great to have Kevin join us here on the show. Kevin, I think I spent the first 30 minutes. I don't know if I said anything positive. That can't be a good thing. Anything you want to add? Any something positive? I got nothing right now.
After last night, I mean, it's one of those games where there just wasn't. Yeah, and after losing 9 of 10, and kind of where we knew it was going. Yeah, I don't see it.
Well, let me ask you this. By the way, I expect nothing different. I have nothing. I mean, I'm trying to look at listeners on YouTube and everything else. Everybody feels the same way. I think for me, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I think there's a lot of times that you can look at the product on a night in, night out basis, you can lose games. It's not that, I get it. Not every roster is created equal. Guys are going to go through slumps. Teams are going to go through streaks where they might win 6-7 games in a row and we feel like, wow, this team is unbelievable, and they could lose 9 to 10 like the Padres just did. But watching them day to day, when you look at the competition and you understand what playoff baseball looks like, how far are they from being a playoff team? And I guess what I'm referring to there is dotting the I's, crossing the T's, coming through in clutch situations. Again, I can make some excuses for the Padres. I think they've dealt with a ton of injuries, but you're watching playoff baseball, and some of these teams you could look at over these last couple of weeks, these are playoff type of teams. How far are the Padres from looking like a playoff team?
Yeah, they're not buttoned down, but they're not getting a lot of opportunities to be buttoned down. They're playing from behind. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, and I think that you're alluding to, like, that you got to win on the margins in the playoffs, as well as, hit homers and, have good pitching. But, like, I can't even fathom this as a playoff team, given the state of the pitching. And I would include the bullpen at this point, largely because you're missing 2 of your top 4, and, guys are getting worn down. The middle guys even are getting worn down because of how much you've had to use them. But, like, the starting pitching, this isn't, it's just not even in the realm of possibility that this is a playoff team based on how it has performed as a whole, and in particular the starting pitching over the last month.
So we'll stay the injuries for a second, and you tell me if we maybe haven't been more. I mean, you may have been in some of your articles, but I'll tell you, for me, just with a mic in front of me, I probably haven't been as sympathetic as I should be in regards to how many guys the Padres have had in and out of the lineup. I could go down the list, whether it's Pivetta or Cronenworth or Estrada, Fermin, Camposano, Jason Adam now. You obviously know the story about Musgrove, Laureano, now Randy Vasquez. How much do you think this is their struggles? And they were at one point 10, 11 games over 500, I think 18-8, 19-9, somewhere around that mark. How much of this do you think has to do with just this stack of injuries that feels like when one guy is back, another guy is gone? Just the timing has been awful.
Yeah, we don't want to totally discount it, but let's not overplay it. I don't think that it's been overlooked too much. I mean, that's not the way that I see it. They had guys, and I'm not saying Laureano would have had some good moments and good stretches, but what was he doing this year? And what has he really been in his career that made you go, oh yeah, for sure. Like Manny, right? There was always this argument of Manny will be Manny. And I'm a big fan of Laureano and a big fan of what he brought. And I think that he would have made a difference. But for us to be that's such a huge thing, I don't know about that. Now, the pitching injuries, and in particular Pivetta, since he did start the season, I think Joe's a big one based on what you were hoping that he was going to give you. But, Pivetta started the season and supposedly was going to be fine. And he, bowed out, had to bow out after, 3.5 games. So, yeah, there's huge things with the starting pitching, but okay, Freddie Fermin, and maybe he's been affected. Gosh, what was the first time that he got taken out of a game? Middle of April. Maybe he's been affected by the blows to the head more than we know. But has he ever been good this year? And I'm a big Freddie guy. Man, it's bizarre that he's not better, but he hasn't been. Camposano, if Camposano was going to continue to play like he was playing, then, oh man, that was a pretty big blow because their catchers have been basically an offensive void. But I don't know, the injury stuff. And there have been years where I've leaned into the injuries man, this team really got screwed. Those are the breaks, but they did pay for it. I don't know, man. I'm just not feeling it this year.
Kevin Acee taking some time to join us. Of course, our Padres insider, Schaefer and Sliwa show. Yeah, Kevin, and part of the reason why you're not feeling it, since they were 18-8, I mentioned they're 26-38. And every day you look at the standings, it feels like another team is just jumping them. They're 4.5 games now back of a wild card, which it's crazy because a month ago they were in a position for a wild card spot, and it just feels like, 4.5 actually seems a lot closer than it should be, just based on what we're seeing on a night in, night out basis. But how do you think these next, I know there's no way of predicting it, but you cover the team and you talk about it as good as anybody, and you got the insight on it. What's the next couple of weeks look like for the Padres? And, I have a difficult time thinking this is a team that you want to invest in if you're AJ Preller, but how do you look at these next few weeks?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm stalling because I really don't know what to say. And that's my answer, is I don't know what to say. Because, why would you have any faith at all at this point? Now, look, I try to really have perspective and not get lost in the mire. But this mire has been going on long enough that I think it's more like reality. And the wonderful thing about sports is it surprises us all the time. So, hey, go ahead and have that optimism. And look, I'll even have a little bit of it because it's kind of a pain in, it's kind of just makes me despondent to think about watching this team and covering this team the way that it's been playing for the next 3 months. So I'll go ahead and have some of that optimism too. But the reality is, I think that this has been going on long enough. And the fact is, kind of like we knew it would, if you're paying attention, that the offense was going to become at least okay. And it's okay now. It might even be okay plus. Obviously, today's not the day to talk about that after last night. But the pitching has, that was why in the beginning of the season or before the season, the metrics, the fan graphs, the steamer, all that did not predict the Padres to do well. And it's playing out. That doesn't always play out. The Padres have actually consistently overachieved those preseason predictions historically the past 6 years, but they're basically becoming exactly what they were expected to be this year. And that's kind of what I think they are. So I don't know what to expect the next couple of weeks, except if you're going to make me choose, I'm going to go, this thing's going to go south.
Kevin, how do you think Craig Stammen has handled the losing here over the last couple of months? And again, to have a first-time manager managing a team that has a really high payroll, aging superstars, expectations, but also a lot of holes, right? I think you've been describing, right? How do you think, as the season has progressed, how do you think he's managing and handling the losses?
Well, I mean, I'm not entirely sure of like him personally or how he's affecting this team to be better. That's probably your question.
Yeah, I don't know. It's more that.
I don't know how anyone could know that. He is doing what he thinks is best, which is to maintain being himself and show his faith in these guys. Could Craig Stammen be doing a better job? I'm sure he could. I've been pretty upfront that I think that they could certainly be more locked down. They could have more quickly realized what they didn't have as one of Mike Schultz's great strengths was knowing what he didn't have. And then he was, while everyone was upset about him giving up outs, he was willing to move runners over and try to win 2-1. But here's the difference. That the bullpen hasn't been as good for Craig Stammen as it was for Mike Schilt. The offense hasn't been as good for Craig Stammen as it is for Mike Schilt. And to put that on Craig Stammen, I think I don't even understand it. And I'll entertain a lot of talk because I think that's the beauty of sports and the beauty of baseball is that there's just a lot of layers to it. But I do not understand where Craig Stammen could have helped Manny Machado's mechanical issues and his offensive horribleness for the first 2 months of the season. I don't know where that comes from. And the fact is, that's far more important to the Padres' success than whatever levers the manager pulls or doesn't pull.
A lot of the questions I've asked so far, kind of more broad, big picture questions. Your take last night, I was joking around before somebody can just park and enjoy a beer. The game's 6-0. What did you make of last night's loss and all the talk about how important this series is going to be in these final 6-7 games? And that's the performance.
Yeah, that's why I would argue that it was just, and it's a nebulous argument. It doesn't really matter, but I would say it was the worst loss of the year. Look, 23-3, it happens. 8 runs given up by your catcher, not just like a catcher who came off the bench, the guy who came out from behind the plate to pitch for you. Like whatever. Okay. Dodgers come back on you. That's one of the best lineups that, any of us alive are going to see, blah, blah. I'm not excusing those. I'm just saying, hey, they happen. When you yourself, not us as media, not fans, we didn't put the expectations on last night. The Padres put the expectations on this series last night, this week, going into the All-Star break, trade deadline. And they came out and played like that. And yes, Walker Buehler holds the bulk of the blame. But like when they came out and laid that egg, it was wow. And if anyone's been listening to me, reading me for a long time, this is not me. Like I don't come out and say these types of things. But I mean, that was awful.
Kevin, appreciate the insight as always, brother. Thank you for coming on, joining the show.
Right on. We'll see you.
All right, great stuff from Kevin Acee. Obviously a lot to react to, and I'm sure I got a lot of these questions here on YouTube that I want to spend a little bit of time on as well. So we'll come to it here. Also want to talk U.S. Men's World Cup. They lose yesterday to Belgium. They're out. Mexico out as well. They lose to England. We got a great soccer guest that's going to join us here coming up at 4:00. So for those that want some reaction to the USA Men's losing yesterday, we'll do that at 4. Stay right here. This is San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app. Schaefer and Sliwa. On our iHeartRadio Music Festival is back. Live performances by the Goo Goo Dolls, Kenny Chesney, Lainey Wilson, Snoop Dogg, Weezer, and more. September 18th and 19th at T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas. 2 nights, 1 stage. Now's your chance to buy tickets at AXS.com. Get them now before they sell out. All right. We're going to shift our attention here coming up at 4 o'clock to soccer. I do want to spend time on last night's loss between USA and Belgium. Do I say loss or do I say just an ass kicking? I mean, if you lose 4-1, it's a little bit of an ass kicking. They remind me a little bit of the Padres yesterday. Somebody asked in the chat, hey, which loss was worse? I'm like, we spent 45 minutes on that. I can break down which one was worse. Because it's single elimination and it's over for the United States, maybe the USA. By the way, there's a phenomenal game going on right now between Switzerland and Colombia, and they are in the middle of penalty kick. So Swiss gets one stop here, or does Swiss win it? No, it's over. Swiss won. Swiss over Colombia. So Switzerland moves on and Colombia is out. I want to say the winner of this now goes up against Argentina. Phenomenal match earlier, Argentina and Egypt. You know what? I'll just do it right now. We can take a little break from the Padres. Let's all take a quick breather from the San Diego Padres. So I watched the game last night. I had an interesting weekend. You know, Brent, John kind of mentioned this a little bit on Thursday, but I went to Mexico City over the weekend and did not go to the game because to get into the game, you're paying $4,000 just to get in. $4,000 a ticket to be at the Azteca in Mexico City for Mexico versus England, which is awesome. I mean, phenomenal. But more than anything else, I just kind of wanted to be in that environment. You know, John and I obviously we were in Monterrey, but we were in Monterrey for Japan, Tunisia. Okay. Not everybody in Mexico was getting up for Japan, Tunisia, but was there over the weekend and was there watching the Mexico England game, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And then flying back, did the, what is it called? CBX, which is a phenomenal way to fly through Mexico. You take that into Tijuana and you fly from Tijuana. So I get back in the United States. I think they were down 1-0. They tie it 1 apiece. And now I'm like just kind of starting to watch on my phone, going through the airport, trying to watch it on the TVs and everything else. My question I've always had when it came to the USA men's national team and the hype that was starting to kind of build around the USA. And I get it. What is it? 15 of the players are playing in Europe. 9 of them are starting on some of these European teams. I get some of the hype. The games are obviously here in the States and you can watch games. They're in LA or they're in Kansas City or the game last night in Seattle. I get the hype. However, I need substance to the hype. And I remember Ziegler telling us, Ziegler came on with us, Mark Ziegler of the UT. He came on like a week and a half ago. And it's like, hey, you excited about Mexico? He's like, they've played nobody. You excited about the United States? He's like, they've done nothing. And he kept saying, I'll give him a lot of credit for this. He kept saying, he's like, until both of these countries get to the round of 16 and win, there's nothing to talk about. And honestly, that's exactly how it played out. I'll leave Mexico to the side. We'll just talk about the United States right now. The U.S. last night played a real country, a country that really, really cares about soccer, a country that takes pride in being a top 10 country in the state of soccer. And, you know, frankly, the United States, let's just stop pretending like everybody cares and there's all this hype and everything else. For me, the only way that you are going to start getting people to believe that United States maybe is in this second tier is if they beat Belgium yesterday. They didn't just lose to Belgium. They got embarrassed. They didn't look good. They looked sloppy. Their star didn't show up. They looked lost. They had possessions where they're giving up free goals. I don't know what the hell the goalkeeper was doing in what was that, the third goal to make it 3-1. I think for those that are trying to make the case here, and again, we'll talk more about this with our next guest coming up with Jackson Phelps, but I think those that are trying to make a case here that the United States made these big leaps and bounds this World Cup, how? They lost in the group of 16 like they always do. I'd love to jump on the train and get everybody all riled up about it. But here's the reality about soccer in the United States. Come Monday, a week from today, everybody's already shifted their attention to either baseball or when the NFL season is going to be starting. And the biggest issue that the United States has when it comes to soccer, it's not that they don't have athletes, is that those athletes are interested in playing other sports. Yes, maybe you can say that there was some progress made, but at the end of the day, they're out in the round of 16, and Belgium's not one of the countries that are considered, they're not Spain, they're not Argentina, they're not France, they're not some of these other countries where you just think, hey, they have a legitimate chance of actually winning a World Cup. And the United States was embarrassed by Belgium yesterday. I'm just being honest with everybody. All right, let's do this. When we come back, let's break down a little bit more. We'll get Jackson Feltz on the show, and he's going to give us his thoughts on the United States-Belgium game. And then I'll hear it from him, somebody that covers USA Men's World Cup soccer. Did the U.S. make progress? We'll get his thoughts on the Mexico-England game as well, and who he thinks is going to be the favorite the rest of the way. Thank you for being here. Stay right here. This is San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app.
Hey guys, it is Schaefer again for my friends at the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. Get out to Hamul this July with their World Cup watch parties going on right now at Tony Gwynn Sports Pub. You can catch every match on the big screen at Tony Gwynn Sports Pub during their World Cup watch parties. You can enjoy game day specials, great food, cold drinks, an electric atmosphere for every match. Grab your crew, experience all the action with Hamul while you're there. You'll love the hotel and spa. You really will. You can experience elevated luxury with their refined hotel stay, rooftop relaxation, indulgent spa treatments, all the excitement of Hamul Casino Resort seamlessly brought together now in one unforgettable destination. Take your stay to the next level with exclusive hotel packages crafted for the ultimate escape. And you're going to love their dining options, including Hamul 23 with their lobster buffet going on each and every day, plus dozens of other delicious stations at the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place.
This report is sponsored by the California Department of Boating and Waterways. The Padres and Diamondbacks are getting set for Game 2 of their series tonight down at Petco Park. It's going to be Zach Gallen going for Arizona and German Marquez going for the Padres. First pitch tonight is at 6:40. World Cup, we got a couple finals now. Argentina defeated Egypt 3-2 earlier this afternoon, and it just went final. Switzerland defeated Colombia in penalty kicks, so they will advance. Whether you're on the lake, on the river, or on the bay, when you hop on board for a day on the water, make sure everyone's on board with wearing a life jacket. Life jackets save lives. Get on board. A message from the California State Parks Division of Boating and Waterways.
One hour in the books, 2 more to go. Appreciate everybody being here. I mentioned Schaefer out today. We spent a lot of time, obviously, talking about the San Diego Padres to start off the show, rightfully so. Kevin Acee, a great conversation there. We'll, if you missed Kevin Acee, we'll replay that around 5:30 later today. But the other big storyline coming out of today is obviously the news of the United States being eliminated from World Cup play. Really, every host nation is out. So Canada, Mexico, and the United States, 3 consecutive days are all now just, they're watching from home. Jackson Felts, who's part of iHeart World Cup and one of the broadcasters for iHeart World Cup, covering the World Cup and certainly covering the USA, had a chat with him. This was a little bit earlier today. I want to play that conversation, that interview that we had. Take a listen, talking about the United States and their progress or lack of progress after the loss to Belgium. Very, very much looking forward to our next guest, Jackson Felts, who's part of the iHeart World Cup broadcast and also Seattle broadcaster as well for their soccer team, taking some time to join us. Jackson, what's going on, brother? Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think we're both here attending this interview today, which is a lot more than the United States men's national team can say about their not showing up last night.
Were they playing last night? I thought it was tonight. So that's a good point there. Yeah, that's a fair assessment there right out the gate. Well, let's start with this, because I think there's so many angles we could take, and I'm sure you're enjoying the World Cup, and obviously to have most of the games here in the States, it added just a very unique element. So with that being said, the United States yesterday eliminated by Belgium. Can you just talk about the actual game, and then we could look at the USA from more of a big picture perspective? What did you make of the game? What went wrong? How much of a surprise was it to lose 4-1? Just kind of break down what you saw last night.
Yeah, a lot of things went wrong. I think we have to start with the effort level of the team. I mean, we joking aside from the start, but they truly didn't show up in that game. I didn't see enough effort on so many different accounts. And, obviously the one massive moment, that being the second half goal, the third goal for Belgium, where goalkeeper Matt Fries just makes, the worst mistake you can possibly make as a goalkeeper. But then you add in the other plays, both those first 2 goals. The first one just drops between 4 different defenders who were all caught ball watching. Serginho Dest leaves it, and then Tim Ream, big mistake there. Ream is again at fault for the second goal. And it's just the level of effort by the defenders and midfielders included was just not there last night. And offensively, weren't able to get anything going. In all of the United States shots last night, all of them came from 1 pass setups or 0 pass setups. Not more than 1 pass ended up leading towards a shot on goal for the U.S. Just immensely frustrating at all ends for the U.S.
When you say that you just felt like, and I know there's a lot of feelings a lot of people have about the energy level and coming out, here it is, the round of 16, a chance to prove yourself, a chance to show the rest of the world that, no, you're supposed to be here, you belong. When you say effort or a lack of effort. Describe just what that means and how that can happen in that type of a game. Just I think it's a similar theme across the board when talking about last night's game.
Yeah, no, I think we can point to a few things. I mentioned kind of that first goal. The ball pops into the air, comes down, and not a single one of those defenders steps to the ball and clears it out. There's this great line, when in doubt, boot it out. And nobody did that. And that kind of leads to that. I think you can look at some other plays where, simply defenders need to step towards balls. Defenders need to put efforts on attacking players for Belgium, who very clearly were motivated in that game. I think you had Rudy Garcia, the head coach for Belgium, make some very big tactical changes. He benched Kevin De Bruyne, he benched Doku, and that's a great speedy winger that Belgium has. Really interesting choices, but it lit a fire under the guys he put in, and it worked. As for the question of why did it happen? That is what I've been wondering for the last, 18 hours or so. Why? Why was a collective 11 players just so off and just so in the mentality of not being up for a round of 16 World Cup game? These are professional elite soccer players. They don't need a head coach like Mauricio Pochettino to come in and light them up with a big speech right before the game. A World Cup round of 16 game where there's 65,000 people wearing stars and stripes in the building screaming their asses off for you. That should be motivation enough for you to go out and play hard and run your ass off and do everything it takes to win that game. And I don't know about with any pregame speech or not, but those players clearly didn't mentally have it yesterday.
Jackson Feltz breaking it down as good as anybody around the country, around USA. Obviously, men's soccer. USA eliminated yesterday. Belgium moves on. Okay, then what's the conversation today? Is because I could look at this, and for me personally, I hear a lot of the chatter leading up to the World Cup, and a lot of people excited about the USA men's national team and the direction that they're going in. But I pause and I'm like, yeah, but I'll believe it when I see it. And when they finally take on a top 10 country in the world, it wasn't close yesterday. So do you think that the United States took progress this year and in this World Cup, or is it unfair, or is it fair for me to say, well, at the end of the day, did you get past the round of 16? And the answer was they didn't.
I think when we talk about it's a good question. I think it really does open up the view from 35,000 feet look at the program as a whole, because we know that Mauricio Pochettino has been handed the offer for an additional 4 years, run the national team through the 2030 World Cup, which will be in Spain, Morocco, and Portugal coming up in 4 years. And with that being on his desk, you look at the program as a whole and you say, well, round of 16, haven't been to the quarterfinals since 2002, missed it entirely in 2018, of course. This program, what is this program? Is this a United States program that is just destined to always be a roughly, somewhere between 20 and 12 around the world rankings, and is never going to take that next jump because of XYZ youth system being the way it is, the pay-to-play model? Or is Mauricio Pochettino, with 4 years, and then you add in the 2 leading into this World Cup, in 6 years, is he able to build a team and build out an exact way of playing that gets this team to being a quarterfinal team and regularly and building the youth system that Jurgen Klinsmann all those years ago said we need to do more at? And that is the $1 million question when it comes to this program, is what will take it to the next level? Is 6 years under Poch enough, or do we have to just revise the whole model and figure out how to get young athletes playing soccer instead of going into, football with the NFL, MLB, NBA, and get players like Erling Haaland in Europe, who, if he was in the United States, would Erling Haaland have played soccer? I don't know, but he came up. He's Norway star now in the English Premier League. So that's the question that United States Soccer and the Federation and the sport in this country overall needs to ask itself right now.
What did you make of Christian Pulisic, and just how disappointing was that? Just his obviously performance in the World Cup. Didn't really feel like he had much of a I know he dealt with some injuries, but just his presence, you didn't feel it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, he was, other than that first 45 minutes against Paraguay, he was absent. And, obviously the injury to his ankle, in the second half yesterday didn't help. But we're looking at a player who is called the star of the national team. He's Captain America. He's the guy. And you can't have the guy falling apart and not being present at all in the biggest game, in the biggest tournament of his life. This was the moment for Christian Pulisic. And listen, you can't put it all on Christian, because when you go down 1-0 in 9 minutes and your defense and a bunch of your midfielders aren't giving the effort either, it's hard to build to a place where it's advantageous to his type of game. He needs that game open. He needs to be running. He needs the ball at his feet. He needs to be having dribblers and guys that he can get the ball to, like a Balogun up top, who was also absent in that game. The game script didn't manifest it in a way where Christian Pulisic could thrive. But how about just be there? How about, give that effort, run, track back, be involved, get the ball on your feet. Sometimes you'll see attacking players in soccer drop all the way back from their high up positions just to get the ball on their feet, just to get involved. You saw Holland do it for Norway in their win over Brazil. He had to drop back. He got involved. He got the ball at his feet, and that kind of helped, get the motors running. That gets Norway their 2 goals there late in that game, 80th and 90th minutes. And I didn't see that from Christian Pulisic. I didn't see it enough. I didn't see it from, frankly, anybody. I couldn't tell you a single player on the field for the United States yesterday who had a positive impact on the game. Even Tillman's goal was deflected. So it's just, Pulisic is part of the crowd, but seeing as how he's Captain America, it's more highlighted.
Jackson Phelps covers the World Cup, one of the World Cup broadcasters for iHeart, also the Seattle Sounders, part of their broadcast team as well. Jackson, I'm kind of curious, just 1 or 2 more quick questions here, just in regards to the rest of the World Cup. What'd you make of Mexico's loss to England, that game specifically? And then I'll follow up with one other question about who you like from everyone that's left coming out of this World Cup, or at least the favorite.
Yep. First on that game, it was amazing. For me, it was the second best game of the tournament so far after the Argentina-Cape Verde game. I think that you looked at our England-Mexico in Mexico City at Estadio Azteca, the history in that building, 80,000 people, 79 of which are, well, maybe more like 75 of which are Mexico fans, how loud it was, the environment, the fact that the game itself, we have the great line, the game was drunk. The game was absolutely crazy with the red card and just the fouls and the VAR reviews and everything else. It was an insane game. And then England has to spend 27 minutes putting pretty much 9 guys behind the ball. At times, it was everybody behind the ball after going a man down. And you're just defending like hell up 3-2. And you just got to, tip your hat to England. It was a spectacular defensive effort there at the death to make it work and to lock that down. And credit to Mexico, they got close a few times. I was surprised Mexico didn't get an equalizer, but that was an amazing job by England. And then to your other question, for me, it's still France. I haven't seen a team better than France in this World Cup so far. I know they squeaked by. They didn't necessarily get the emphatic win that they could have gotten in the round of 16, but I think the quality is still there. I think you'll see it, coming up against Morocco. And for my money, I just don't know if anybody has the attacking talent that France has. When Spain, they can control games, but I don't see the quality in the final third to score from Spain as I do from France right now.
Jackson, great stuff, brother. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on and joining the show, and thank you for analysis.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right, great stuff there. That is Jackson Phelps breaking it down. Of course, the USA out of the World Cup, but still plenty of World Cup to talk about. We got a lot of stuff that we're going to hit on. We'll react to Jackson's interview. Stay right here. This is the Schaefer and Sleba Show on San Diego Sports 760. All right, San Diego Sports 760, your home for live coverage of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Get daily match updates from the opening match to the final, July 19th. Here, live play-by-play of the most anticipated games. 2026 World Cup coverage lives on San Diego Sports 760. Have enjoyed definitely watching a lot of these World Cup games. Yesterday, I get back from Mexico City, and I put the game on, obviously, on 760s, or I put the USA game on. Something to keep in mind, if you're out driving around, you never got to miss any of the action. Obviously, we're carrying all the games on 760. I think everybody knows that. So, Brent, I mentioned this. And great stuff, by the way. Great analysis by Jackson Feltz. And we'll get back into the Padres in a little bit here. We got plenty to bitch and complain about. Don't worry. We'll get it off our chest. So, I mentioned this, Brent, that I was in Mexico City for a couple of days. So obviously, while leading up to this Mexico City-England game, you just say this, brother. You don't have to be the biggest soccer fan in the world to just get kind of caught up in some of that energy. I will say that Mexico has to be one of the best soccer countries in the world. And the fact at you probably don't, because I know you're not, crazy into social media and everything else. But I don't know if you've ever seen some of these videos that they have of the people lining up in the streets to watch these games. Outside of they got an area there, you want to call it their like World Cup zone and everything else. That's where the famous cathedral is. That's where they just got some of the most iconic shots that you can find in Mexico City. Brother, they just got all these TVs and thousands of people that are watching. And I will say something that they did was so cool. They had some of their streets was lined up like every 200 yards. They would just have these huge screens everywhere to consume. And you just got people leaking out of everywhere. I didn't know this. Mexico City has 22 million people in the city. You got people leaking from every corner. That's like, yep, I'll just park a spot right here. Man, it was a pretty cool experience. And unfortunately for them, they never gave themselves an opportunity in that game. Neither did the United States. So both of those teams are out. But let's say I had about 800. I think I counted them. I had 847 tacos over about 3 days. I'm a tacos guy. Everything that came in front of me, I ate. It was a cool experience. It was phenomenal, and it was definitely fun to be there. Okay, I want to play something for everybody here. MLB Network was having a conversation about the Padres, and basically, the conversation of like, hey, should they be punting on the season? Should they not be punting on the season? I feel like I've been talking about this now for 2 months. And the conversation about Mason Miller came up. Let's play this here real quick. This is the crew from MLB TV. Take a listen.
All right, we talked about the Padres earlier, Steve. Should they trade Mason Miller?
Yes, they should. So if the Padres think they're in it and they're going to go for it, right? The game under 500, they're going to try for that third wild card spot. They need starting pitching and offense, okay? Their surplus is bullpen. And Mason Miller is the biggest chip that they have. And there's a team in the Bronx that would desperately give up what it would take to get him, where they could get a Ryan Weathers, who they've had before, or they can get a Will Warren, and they could get a Spencer Jones or Jason Dominguez. So you're going to get the pitcher and a bat to be able to go to the Padres there, and they can move more home to closers, Estrada to closer. I'm telling you right now, the Padres have to do that if they want to try to get back in it this year.
I'll take you back to 1999, and not that I'm saying that Mason Miller is Mariano Rivera, but that basically would be what the Yankees would be looking at. A 1999 version, 3 years in as a closer, as Mason Miller is, that they traded Mariano Rivera because the Yankees were going sideways and they traded Mo. That's how much I believe in him. He also doesn't become a free agent until 29. So this isn't something we're like, hey, we're pushing on free agency. We can get a year and a half of prospects. I would not trade him. If there's one thing that's nothing more demoralizing than to have a 2 or 3 run lead and you blow it in the 9th.
Somebody explain this to me, and you can, why is every angle for Mason Miller and any value of Padre types of players, specifically Mason Miller, and the Tatis conversation for a quick second, why does everybody think he's just going to go to the Yankees? Like, can you help me understand? Is it because Juan Soto went to the Yankees? Is that the angle there?
Well, because they have prospects and they have stuff that they can trade away, and the Yankees aren't afraid to take a risk.
Or is it more the conversation that the Yankees will get eyeballs, and it's the conversation and it's the clicks and everything else? Because I don't think there's much substance to this. I really don't. I don't think AJ Preller is trading away Mason Miller. That doesn't mean they won't trade away other pieces. That doesn't mean, wouldn't it make more sense if you're trading away, the argument that one of the broadcasters was trying to make there is like, hey, if you trade away Mason Miller, now you can get some pitching and a bat and everything else. If you're trading away Mason Miller, aren't you basically selling on the season? Like, tell me a world where you think, let's trade Mason Miller after we gave up our number one prospect a year ago, to then say we're still fighting for a playoff spot. Does that make any sense to you?
No, but here's the tricky thing with the Mason Miller thing is he's a closer.
You don't see him when you're losing.
Exactly. If we're going to have 8 singles in a game and we're going to, be behind 8-zip, we don't really need Mariano Rivera, do we? So, and Steve Phillips brought up the point too in another clip I was looking at this afternoon that, if they do trade Mason Miller, then just move Morejon or somebody else into the closer spot.
Yeah, Morejon he's going to become a free agent by the time this year is all said and done. The idea of having Mason Miller is exactly that, to have him. He's protected for X amount of years. You're going to have him for at least a few more years. I just don't see a world where AJ Preller decides, all right, I'm going to start selling and I'm going to sell AJ Preller. By the way, you can be a team that doesn't think you're going to make the playoffs. You don't want to invest any more into this team and still think, well, let me retool this thing for next year and have Mason Miller next year. I'm not trading away Mason Miller. I understand that the way the Padres are sitting right now, it doesn't help to have the best closer in baseball if your team can't win and you can't set him up in a position to close. But I'm also not I'm not trading Mason Miller 1 year after I got him and I gave up DeVry, the Padres' number one prospect. And also, can we stop trying to make every trade that the Padres have with the New York Yankees? Every freaking broadcaster out there is like, hey, just trade him to the Yankees. Those sound like clickable clicks, if you know what I mean. All right. We got the wrap coming up next. 5 o'clock, Eric Pincus is going to join us. 4:45, I do want to talk more about the San Diego Padres and this upcoming game they got against the Arizona Diamondbacks. So we'll do all that coming up next. Stay right here. Schaefer and Slewa Show, San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, DraftKings is live in all 50 states. Yes, that means you, California, win or go home. That's it. That's the knockout round, and DraftKings has you covered for every single match. The DraftKings app is now live in California, so whether you're catching the early kickoff before work or the late match at the bar, you're in on every minute, every match, every moment, all in one app. Right here in California, the world's biggest stage is in the palm of your hand. New DraftKings customers sign up with a code SD760. Spend $5 to get $200 in total rewards over 21 days. That's code SD760 in partnership with DraftKings. The crown is yours. Event trading offered by DraftKings Predictions, a CFTC registered introducing broker. Trading involves risk of loss. Market availability varies. Eligibility restrictions apply. $50 every 7 days via click-to-claim issued in non-withdrawable prediction dollars that expire in 1 year. Ends July 19th. Terms, dkng.co/predictions promo.
This report is sponsored by the California Department of Boating and Waterways. Padres and Diamondbacks are getting set for game 2 of their series tonight down at Petco. It's going to be Zach Gallen going for Arizona and German Marquez going for the Friars. First pitch tonight is set for 6:40. We had a couple finals from the World Cup today. Earlier, Argentina defeated Egypt 3-2, and Switzerland defeated Colombia in penalty kicks. Whether you're on the lake, on the river, or on the bay, when you hop on board for a day on the water, make sure everyone's on board with wearing a life jacket. Life jackets save lives. Get on board. A message from the California State Parks Division of Boating and Waterways.
Welcome back to San Diego Sports 760. San Diego Padres, 6 games left before the All-Star break, and now 2 games below 500, 90 games in. So 72 games left for San Diego to try to figure out a way to get back into the mix here. And maybe I don't think I have. I don't think people think I have. But I was going to say maybe I've been a little too critical about the Padres as we sit here and we're watching a team just it's not even like a slow drip. It's just fall off a cliff. 1-9 in their last 10 games. It's been frustrating to watch, and I know the conversation's going to shift and people will start having the conversation about what do they do at this stage. I don't think this is a team I would invest another dollar in. I just wouldn't. It's tough. It's tough to watch. It's like you're watching the Padres and they're in such a unique situation. One of the selling points of San Diego right now is, hey, it's the number 1 ballpark. Come out here and enjoy the game. But a lot of the reason why Petco Park has become one of the places to be at in all of San Diego and really all of baseball, one of the best experiences around the country when it comes to sports is because the product has also been good. Product is not good right now. It's just a very, very tough thing to watch. And it's like you've been going to a restaurant, and every time you go to that restaurant, you're like, man, the thing I love about this restaurant, it's clean. The service is awesome. And you know what? On top of all that, the food is really, really good. Now you're watching the product and you're like, the service, it's okay. The food, got to be honest with you, it's average. Steak is still, you cooked it way too far through. What kind of steak is this? It's not as good as it obviously it was. And the thing I do is that there is an expectation for the Padres to be good. If you are a San Diegan, that hasn't always been the case. So it's important to have a franchise that you're rooting for, that you do have those expectations. But right now, I don't see much light at the end of the tunnel. We'll see what eventually happens, and we'll continue the conversation throughout the show. But right now, let's do the wrap.
It's time for the wrap. Presented by Sombrero Mexican Food. Check out their website at sombreromex.com.
Are you surprised by U.S. and Mexico losing?
To be honest with you, I'm not. I think I was a little bit more disappointed in Mexico. Here's my problem with the United States, and I said this a little bit earlier. I don't have expectations for them because it's the United States and it's soccer. And I know everyone wants to spend 2 months talking about how they're the biggest soccer fans here in the States, and go crazy about how intense it is and everything else. The reality is, in a couple of weeks, everyone's attention is going to shift to football anyways. Trust me, college and NFL, that's where all the attention is going to go. And until they have, and they never really had, I would say, a signature win in the tournament, I'm not as surprised as them. Mexico and England, here's the problem. Mexico gives up 2 goals in the span of 3 minutes. You're playing at the Azteca. We've had Darren on the show. We might get him back on Thursday, working on a schedule. Talking about how unbelievable they've been at the Azteca in World Cup play. They never gave themselves a shot. Like, if Mexico, I think, scores the first goal against England, I think the entire complexion of that game, that match is different. And instead, and by the way, England gets a red card, and a couple minutes later, they got another penalty kick, and they go up 3-1. Like, Mexico never gave themselves a shot. So I'm more surprised Mexico lost than the United States when it comes to the World Cup.
How likely is it that the Padres window is closed?
How likely is it? You know, one of the reasons why this question came up, I saw some comments in YouTube that were really, and I just think this is a conversation everybody's having, is that window of Tatis and Machado and Xander and Jake Cronenworth and Musgrove and Darvish and Michael King, kind of go down the list of some of these Padre players that have been here for a handful of years. I know Michael King, not as long. He comes in the Soto trade. Yeah, I got a difficult time. I think coming into this year, I think it was closing, right? As I sit here today, I'm watching some of these other teams. I saw them go 0-6 against the Phillies. I saw the Cubbies, who in that first game in Wrigley Field play awful baseball and still find a way to beat the Padres 3-2. And this is not me counting the 23-3 loss. I'm watching a team that has no arms. I saw a squad that's depending on Walker Buehler to be great. Walker Buehler's given up 16 runs in his last 2 games. Can you make an argument that that window is still open? Can you? Why don't you help me out on this one?
No, I don't think it's open anymore. Just because Tatis isn't the Tatis of old. Manny is still hitting under 200.
Xander is the exact same player he's
and
been. God, that's the worst thing to say right there. You just said Xander is still Xander. The guy was never a player that they thought he would be.
Who knows if we're going to actually see Pivetta or Musgrove this season too? That's a big thing. I think if those guys, we knew for sure they were going to come back, that would definitely change my opinion a little bit. But if we don't know and they don't come back, then
look at the date too. Like July 7th. What's the earliest they come back? August 1st. I mean, that's
too late.
Earliest they come back. And I wouldn't even say that's too late. I think that's okay. Like, even if they came back August 1st, but how many months? I mean, we just keep doing it. It's like we kick the can down the road a couple of weeks. Nothing they could do. I mean, obviously, Pivetta wants to be there. Musgrove wants to be there. These players want to be there. Jason Adam just goes to the IL. I don't know. It seems like there's every time the Padres, they're not catching any breaks, and they're also just not good enough. So to answer the question about do I think the window is closed? Yeah, I do. I think the window's closed.
Where do you think LeBron ends up?
Damn, that sucks. Sucks to say that, but it's the truth. Where does LeBron end up? Before I answer where LeBron ends up, here's what the first thing I'll say. I think LeBron's going to milk this thing. If it was up to LeBron, there'd be a special on where's LeBron going to end up that airs every evening at 8 p.m. on ABC. And ESPN would probably cover it. Where do I think he's going to end up? I think when the dust settles, Jesus, man. There's some reports last week, the Philadelphia angle. I thought that was really interesting. I actually like the Philly angle better than I think the Miami angle. But I still think he ends up on the West Coast. Does he just end up with the Warriors? Does he go to Cleveland?
No, he won't go to Cleveland.
Where do you think he goes? I'm going to say when the dust settles, he ends up with the Golden State Warriors.
He's either going to go to Golden State or he's going to go to Philadelphia. I think if it's really about him getting another ring, like he says it is, he should go to Philadelphia.
He should go to Philly.
Because with him in the starting lineup, they'll have Maxey, they'll have Edgecombe, they'll have Embiid for half the year.
And Jaylen freaking Brown.
And they'll probably play LeBron at the 4.
Yep.
So that starting lineup is better than the starting lineup would be if he would go to Miami or if he would go to Golden State. So
how about this?
I think he should go to Philly.
How about this, too, with LeBron if he went to Philly? Play 20 minutes a night. Like, save yourself. Just, let these other youngsters kind of be the guys that carry the team. Put yourself in a position that by the time you get to the postseason, you're just healthy. And again, you don't have to go through San Antonio and OKC and Nikola Jokic with Denver and all these other teams. Not to say that there isn't talent in the East. Just don't think it's the same talent as the West.
Finally, what will the Padres' record be in the last 6 home games before the All-Star break?
6 home games before the All-Star break. So they started yesterday, already lost yesterday. By the way, shout out to my my niece, Ava, who's part of a choir that's singing at the game tonight at Petco Park. They're going to be singing the national anthem, so that's awesome.
Nice.
What do I think the record is going to be these final 6 games? I'm going to go 2-4. Yeah, I'm just going to keep going with, I have no reason to give them the benefit of the doubt in anything. I thought Alden Gonzalez brought up something really interesting last week. We're talking to him, and it was before the Dodgers series, and we're talking about how the margin of it, or we're talking about how, the Padres don't play clean, this and that, the ABS challenges. He said something I thought was really interesting. He's like, hey, at the end of the day, the Padres' mistakes are just magnified so much more because they have such, little margin for error. But I thought yesterday, if that's any indication of what this homestand is going to be, such a critical game, such an important series, such a critical time to convince AJ Preller we're just playing some bad baseball right now, but we're actually a better team. And then they lose 8-0. I thought that was kind of every indication. So anytime we're giving a prediction on the Padres as far as what their record is, what it's going to be over this stretch, how they're going to do against this team, I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt because I'm watching them play every single night and they don't deserve the benefit of the doubt. All right, Eric Pincus coming up here at 5 o'clock. We're going to talk NBA. Let me just, if I'm trying to give a prediction of where LeBron's going to go, he'll give a much more accurate prediction of where LeBron's going to go. I saw this as well. Brent put it in there. They are giving their mid-season grades around Major League Baseball on ESPN. So we'll look at that. I promised a little bit earlier I was going to look at some YouTube comments. I am going to look. I appreciate all the people we got here on YouTube. We'll look at some of the comments. We'll read that. And then, like I mentioned, at 5 o'clock, we'll get Eric Pincus on the show as well. Stay right here. This is San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, San Diego Sports 760. Eric Pink is coming up at 5 o'clock, covers the NBA for Bleacher Report. We'll talk a little bit about the NBA. You know, I still got to get his opinion, his thoughts. Still trying to figure out the Jaylen Brown trade from the Boston Celtics. What did Brad Stevens say? Something about you can't have two guys making 70% of your salaries. It's still a top 10 player in the NBA. It seems like he always gets Jaylen Brown got the short end of the stick on that one, but could have a chance to, obviously excel in Philadelphia. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. I mentioned I was going to read a couple of these YouTube comments, and then I'm going to go with ESPN, how they're grading the Padres. Let me just read a couple here. There was a conversation that came up a little bit earlier. Everybody has an opinion and a thought of trading the San Diego Padres' best players, one of them being Mason Miller, who's going to be an all-star. Here's one comment here. Mike on YouTube. Mason Miller should never have been acquired in the first place. If you're going to trade the number 3 rated prospect in all of baseball, you have to get more than a closer when you need more. Okay? Let's get another one here. Team has zero backbone, and it shows. D-backs are playing hard. Obviously talking about the Diamondbacks game yesterday. And this is a team that's also underperforming. The Arizona Diamondbacks, I could look at some teams around Major League Baseball. I could be like, hey, look at the St. Louis Cardinals, super young. They're playing really, really hard, and they don't have that much expectations. Arizona has expectations and are just not playing well. And going into yesterday's matchup, both of these teams had the same exact record. So now Arizona with a lead on San Diego. These teams look like two completely different squads in last night's game. It's one game. We'll see what happens. The problem with the Padres, they win that final game, that finale in Los Angeles, and you're like, hey, can they build a little bit of momentum? They lose 3 or 4 of the Dodgers. They avoid getting swept. I think it would have been the first 4-game sweep that the Dodgers had on the Padres. It had been years. I think it was 2009, 10, something like that. I heard some type of stat in regards to that. So obviously a couple of these comments, and I don't think Mason Miller's going anywhere. I think even if the Padres fold up shop and decide they got no shot at making the playoffs, or if AJ Preller becomes more strategic and says, guys, I don't want to invest anymore in this team, or new ownership says, yeah, we kind of want to build things a little bit differently, and we're not sure we want to keep throwing bad money into a franchise right now that, a lot of these players are not making it happen. And there's the concern that these contracts are going to be of concern for years to come. So ESPN put this out there, and I just want to, give everyone a little bit of an idea what it is. So they did their mid-season grades. All right. Talking about the Padres. Here's what they said. The grade they gave the Padres was a C-. Padres 2 games below 500. I already told you guys the record. What are they, 26-38 after they were 10 games over 500? So now 2 games below 500. This grade might be a little generous since it feels as if the Padres are teetering on the edge of a cliff. They're right about that. Whoever, obviously the experts on here talking about the Padres, they're definitely right about that. I said this a little bit earlier. It's not the slow drip. It's like you're just getting closer and closer to the cliff until somebody pushes you off or you push yourself off. Not only for the 2026 season, but for a future that includes a gazillion dollars still owed to Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr. By the way, this is the worst part about this article. They say Manny Machado, and then they put his 189 average and his .2 WAR. They put Fernando Tatis Jr. and they put his 5 home runs and his 1 WAR. They put Xander Bogaerts and his 658 OPS and his 1.5 WAR. They put Jake Cronenworth and his 168 average and his minus .5 WAR. They put Jackson Merrill and his 214 average and his .5 WAR. They are describing not just the grade of the San Diego Padres this year. They're describing the future of the San Diego Padres on top of that. They go on to say a great bullpen can only do so much. And if the Padres' top hitters continue to struggle and they fall behind in the wild card standings, general manager AJ Preller might have to consider trading pending free agents Jason Adam and Adrian Morejon, or even look to flip Michael King, player option worth $58 million the next 2 seasons, or dare we say Mason Miller? That actually in a paragraph right there is a very, very great explanation of where SD is sitting and where the San Diego Padres are sitting. And I think that grade, the C-, yeah, I guess that's fine. I give him a C-, but I think most people would understand kind of the direction that they're going in. The Morejon stuff, I understand, and I love Adrian Morejon. I think he's been so rock solid for the Padres. Love Jason Adam, and I know he's injured now, and he's had his fair share of issues, and on not fair share, just I think he's had some moments this year where it just didn't feel like Jason Adam, but he's also had some injuries. We know he got injured last year before the postseason, and that was a killer for the Padres. That injury, I think, was in September. But those are 2 players that, yeah, I get it. If you're looking to say, well, what players do we have value with that are also going to be free agents? Those are probably the 2 players that you trade. Now, you put those 2 guys on the market because they are going to be free agents. Maybe you get less in return, but if they end up on the right team and a team thinks they're an Adrian Morejon or a Jason Adam, away from really making a run in their bullpen, those are 2 solid players that can certainly help a bullpen out. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. But I thought that article was interesting. One thing that I really want to do, but I'll probably wait to do this at about 5:15. I would like to have more of a conversation about Craig Stammen, because I don't know how it is for other Padre fans, but really starting to lose confidence in Craig Stammen. And here's what I mean by that. I think it's so important that you have a manager that is inspiring. I don't care if that manager is inspiring to me. I don't care about that. I just want that manager to be inspiring to the team. And when things are tough, obviously the team kind of steps up and they rally. Maybe it's the manager doing whatever he does, however he can get the team to just get back on track. Does Craig Stammen seem like so far the right manager to do that? So 5:15, we'll talk a little bit about Craig Stammen. So I want to make sure that we give that the proper amount of time. I don't want to rush into that. Kevin Acee, if you missed our conversation with Kevin Acee, we will replay that coming up at 5:30. But coming up next, what's going to happen to LeBron James? Can the Lakers make a move for Jonathan Kuminga? I saw a story about the Clippers trying to angle for Peyton Watson in some type of a sign and trade. He's a restricted free agent, and we'll get his thoughts on the rest of the NBA as well. Stay right here. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show. San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by rockauto.com. The Padres and Diamondbacks are downtown Petco getting set for game 2 of their series. It's going to be Zach Gallen going for Arizona and Herman Marquez going for the Padres. First pitch tonight is set for 6:40. World Cup, we got 2 finals from earlier today. Argentina defeated Egypt 3-2, and Switzerland defeated Colombia on penalty kicks. A failed struck can turn any drive into a rough ride. When it's time for repairs, Rock Auto makes finding the right part easy. Shop name brands at lower prices and have the parts shipped directly to your door. All the parts your car will ever need, Rock Auto.
All right, 2 hours down, 1 hour to go. Appreciate everybody tuning in here. Schaefer and Sliwa Show. Schaefer obviously out. Want to welcome in our next guest. I've been promoting it all day that we're going to have Eric Pincus, who covers the NBA Cross Bleacher Report, taking the time. What's going on, Eric? How are you, brother?
I'm good. What's going on? I'm happy to chat some Lakers, some NBA, whatever you want.
All right. Well, if you want to go, I mean, if you want to also break down why the Padres are tanking, feel free. I mean, you could just let me know. Losers of 9 of 10. I don't think you want to break that down. It's ugly, Eric. It's ugly. Let's put it that way. But
maybe they don't care about the new lottery system that the NBA does, I guess.
100%. You're right about that. Maybe they're upset about this free throw system that they're trying to place there. Okay, well, let me start with this. And I think there's a bunch of different angles that we can take, and there's nobody better than to come to when, obviously we sit here this is probably about a month and a half ago, at least a conversation that you and I had. And that doesn't mean you weren't predicting this before. I remember a month and a half ago, you were one of the few people out there that was like, yep, I don't think LeBron is going to stay as a Los Angeles Laker. And that was your opinion. And, obviously, as we sit here today, that's exactly what eventually played out. What do you think kind of happens here? Can you break down for us? And I'm sure a lot of people are curious where LeBron is going to play his 24th season in the NBA. How do you think this is all playing out? What's happening in regards to the decision making? Like, when can we expect a decision, I guess, number one? And number two, where do you think he eventually ends up when the dust settles?
Well, that's a good question. And, maybe he's just going to take his sweet time because, he can. There's no rush. He's, patient. What's the hurry? Obviously, all the other teams would like to know, and he would like to know, I'm sure, what's next, but there's just no real rush. This is a personal thing for LeBron now because this is, obviously his life, what he wants to do with his time. He only has so much time left. So it may be the last year. It might be the last couple of years, whatever it ends up being. He wants to go out on his terms and in a situation where he has a chance to compete at a high level. So I think he's looking, Warriors was a team that I've said is the favorite and has always been the favorite. The Cavaliers are another. There's, the returning home story. So, does he want to finish his career playing alongside Steph Curry and have one of those, the old guys go for one last battle kind of thing? It's a great story. Going back home, finishing there. Great story. That's a team that could compete in the East. Already was the second best team in that conference in terms of how far they got. The Sixers went for Jaylen Brown and, pair up with Embiid and then Tyrese Maxey. Maxey's, on Clutch Sports, same agency as LeBron. I could come up with more, go play with AD in Washington. Some of those are far-fetched, like AD in Washington, but he can go wherever he wants. But it definitely is not going to be the Lakers.
I'm curious here, and we'll kind of see how things play out. What do you make of, last week when the news came out that Jaylen Brown was traded to the Philadelphia 76ers? What do you make of a fit there? Is there a world where you think he ends up in Philly?
Well, the thing is, I was thinking about that, just randomly. I don't actually personally love the fit myself. Because you have Embiid who, slows down the game. They're already sort of battling as a franchise with an older Embiid, who's amazing, by the way. Don't get me wrong. He's an incredibly talented former MVP, but he's only healthy so much. And when they play with Embiid, they're going to play at a different pace than they're going to play with Maxey, who's one of the fastest guards in the league, along with VJ Edgecombe. And now you have Jaylen Brown, who is a guy who he's not a ball killer at all, but he is a guy who is going to take the ball out of the hands of the other guys to score. Like if you want Jaylen Brown to be Jaylen Brown, he's got to have the ball. And then you put LeBron in there, and LeBron can do whatever. Like he could pass the ball. He's incredible. But is this the best use of their resources? Personally, I don't like that team and how it fits. But at the same time, a lot of these decisions aren't always just about like the on-court product. Sometimes it's just there's political reasons. They do have an opportunity. Maybe LeBron doesn't want to go back home. Maybe Donovan Mitchell doesn't want him back. I don't know. I'm just making that up. Please don't agree that. I'm just saying, like, theoretically, what if Donovan Mitchell doesn't want that? Like he just got his big giant extension. Maybe he doesn't want that. So, yeah, and we should at least consider Miami as a possibility too, because, LeBron has ties to that. Maybe he'll go play with Giannis and Bam Adebayo. And, getting out of the West makes a lot of sense to me because, when we look at like championship, you're probably not going to get past the Spurs and the Thunder, but the Warriors is the closest to LA. So, you start going through the options. I can argue any of it. It's really just a personal decision. But personally, I don't love Philly for him just when it comes to the basketball, but that may not be the decider.
Eric Pincus covers the NBA for Bleacher Report, joining us here on Schaefer and Sleva Show. Erica, last week there was a little bit of a flurry, right? First it was the news about LeBron. And then the next day was the Lakers making moves to get Walker Kessler, Quentin Grimes. Sandro Mamu comes from the Toronto Raptors, Colin Sexton. Today they add Kevon Looney. What have you made of the Lakers offseason so far? And clearly they have decided, hey, let's just build this entire thing around Luka. Just what have you made of this first week of free agency and how it's affected the Lakers?
Well, like I felt with, Walker Kessler was clearly the number one target. It was like a 1A and a 1B. The 1B would be if LeBron and Cleveland very quickly came to some sort of deal that brought in Jarrett Allen to the Lakers. I could see that being a path, but that's a dead end at this point. They went with Walker Kessler. I felt like the trade gave up everything they had left in terms of picks, almost everything that they had in terms of picks. So it's really now on them being right. Do I feel like it's the best use of their resources? Probably not, but at the same, not the player, yes, but I felt like you had to maybe push the Jazz, put out an offer sheet, make them match. Maybe you lose out on him. Like there were different ways to go about it, but they felt that it was important enough to give away the last of the picks, the first that they had, to go get him. And so they just have to be right. I'm not always right. That's my wife and she's awesome, but I'm not always right. And so like I'm fine being wrong. When a team proves me wrong, that's great. I like to come up with my best opinion. And when they show me that I'm wrong, I don't hold on to the wrong opinion. So if the trio of Austin, Luka, and Kessler is a foundational trio that can compete at the highest level and you just pepper them with the right role players, I'm not also sold yet on the role players. I like Mamu or Sandro Mamu. I gotta practice that.
So I go Mamu. We make it easy on everybody. Yep.
So I like him for that. That was a fit that I had targeted for them as in writing, saying that's a really good offensive fit for Luka and Austin because you have a big guy who can make decisions. He's a smart player. He's aggressive. He's not just. He's more than just a smart player. He's talented. He's aggressive. He's a big dude. He plays hard. He plays, aggressively. But he's also someone you could get the ball to when the guards are trapped or when there's blitzes. If you watch the Warriors, what Draymond Green does. Now he's not at that level, but Draymond gets the ball and can make a decision and make the right play. I think they'll run a lot of that kind of offense. He's not a defender though. And then Looney is actually, out of the players available, I actually like him as a role player for them. I think he's a good fit because they're literally just going with a guy who has championship experience playing defense, setting screens, all the things that you need to do on a winning team, which is really kind of what they lack across the roster. Grimes is a good get as a combo guard to back. You do need a very capable combo guard in addition to Luka and Austin. That's your third guard, and he may start at small forward or well, Luka might be, who knows how they position it, but it might be a 3-guard starting group. And, Sexton is a good scorer, good shooter. Not sure he defends well enough. I'd rather a little bit more defense at that position. They lost DeAndre Ayton, replace him with whatever. Like, it is what it is. I don't know that Hardy is needed. Maybe he gets moved. I've heard, and I think we've all heard, that they're trying to target Jonathan Kuminga. And so to do that, they would have to make some trades. So that could be Dalton Connect. It could be Jake LaRavia. It could be Hardy repackaged. Or it could be Vanderbilt. And it could involve their picks, the remaining seconds that they have. They do have a first swap, one left. I don't know what they're going to end up doing, but, there's certainly that feasibility that they add one more piece, because they are short, in my mind, a starting forward. And
I agree with you.
If Kuminga's that, if Kuminga's that, I don't know that he's, like, if I were to draw up the perfect player, he's probably not that, but there's very few perfect players. But he is a talented young guy who has, lottery talent and hasn't found the exact right fit for whatever reason. And I don't think he hurts the team. I think he's at least interesting. I would need to see what JJ Redick as the coach can come up with that combination of players. I'm not sold on it, but Lakers shouldn't be trying to sell anybody right now in July. The time to sell the fans is when you're in the playoffs and you're competing for the second round, third round. Like, they have a long way to go before they have to really be the finished product. Early signs, they have a long way to go, but I'm glad they pivoted from LeBron. It was the right thing to do.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I'm going to lob one more Laker question at you, and I got one Clipper question for you as well. But staying with the Lakers, whether these are all the right moves or it's not, we'll have to wait and find out. I do think if they can get Jonathan Kuminga as the final piece, if you want to call it that, for the offseason, then you cannot argue that they didn't get younger, quicker, more athletic. And doesn't mean it's going to work, but clearly they went a different route. Were you surprised how definitive and how quick the front office decided whatever we've been doing these last couple of years is not going to work? And that included Rui Hachimura, and that included, some other players that have had success with the Lakers. Were you surprised the kind of the drastic pivot here?
No, I mean, they haven't paid to keep many role players historically. They just, guys come and go, and they prioritize, at least from my point of view, the stars. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but they commit to the stars. It was LeBron and AD, and then it was, LeBron, Luka, Austin. Like, these are the important pieces, and everybody else has been, shuffled in and out. They didn't keep Alex Caruso. Like, you start going down the list of important role players through time that they didn't keep. It's a long list. So, I thought that they would keep Kennard because of what he does as a shooter and as like a ball handler, as like a guy off the bench. So that was the one guy I thought, like, they would either go Smart or replace him. I had heard Grimes was a possibility. So if Grimes was happening, Smart wasn't going to happen. So that wasn't a surprise. I personally would have liked to have seen Rui there because they gave up a lot of shooting, but it was going to be Rui or Mamu, and it was probably not going to be both. Again, I'm not the one making the decisions. I felt like probably finding a hybrid of what they did, and keeping some of the continuity. I wrote up on Bleacher Report, some A's here, A-, B+, but the continuity is like it's like a D or something like that. You have a team that are the last team standing in the West, and admittedly not like at the highest, level of the Spurs and the Thunder, and they didn't have Luka, but you were pretty dang good. And so they're like, and I respect it, they're saying we got to take a potential step back to be better long term. I don't have a problem with that. I don't know if I would do the exact same combination of players that they did, but I respect the direction.
Just a real quick one here. I'm going to squeeze in Clippers, their offseason, and obviously the trading of Kawhi Leonard, bringing in Brandon Ingram. We know that they traded James Harden and Darius Garland's there. I know that I've heard their name being mentioned around potentially Peyton Watson. What have you made of their offseason?
Well, they got some draft compensation. They weren't going to reinvest in Kawhi unless it was at a very favorable number. Ingram is different player, but similar in the sense that he's similar position, younger, and they could see how he fits and reinvest, or they could move him on or whatever. The team, I was at the draft, and Lawrence Frank, who's their top basketball guy, was pretty straightforward that they're just not in contention like they were previously. And so that's okay. It's just, they need to make bold decisions. So they made the decision to trade James Harden and Zubats and all that from that point of view. And if you follow the line of logic that you're not contending anymore, the next step was trading Kawhi. So from here, I don't know. We haven't seen Benedict Mathurin sign. I don't know what's going on with that. He was, part of the big acquisition with Zubats. He's a restricted free agent. Peyton Watson, I suppose, could happen, but it depends on the Nuggets, because if the Clippers make an offer, I don't know. They paid Rui Hachimura. They don't really have the means, so it has to be sign and trade, which is a very feasible thing, provided the Nuggets want to do that. If they don't, then they're not going to get Peyton Watson. So what can they offer that entices the Nuggets, who have some real money problems? Their payroll is, with luxury tax and whatnot, is pretty catastrophic. So I think that we may see something bend. I think Watson to LA, as far as Clippers, is something we should consider on the map. But I think it really depends. Can the Nuggets find a trade for Cam Johnson or for Christian Brown? Like, is there some alternative so that they can keep Watson? In the absence of that, because I thought we would have already seen Cam Johnson traded, to be honest. And since we haven't, and a lot of these teams don't have the same level of money, maybe the Clippers going after Watson is maybe more credible than maybe I initially thought. And so I put it on the radar. I'm not going to say it happens, but it is something to at least pay attention to, is not just fluff. I can see the real logic of why it could happen.
Eric, great stuff, brother. Thank you for coming on, and appreciate your time as always. All right.
All right. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right. That is Eric Pincus, covers the NBA for Bleacher Report, breaking down everything around the league. That's it. We got all our answers. No need to pay any more attention to NBA free agency. Okay. We come back. Got some pretty good news here regarding the San Diego Padres. I'm looking at a tweet from Annie Halbrin, and it has to do with some pitching developments here in regards to Joe Musgrove. So we'll talk about that coming up next. Stay right here. This is the Schaefer and Sliwa Show, San Diego Sports 760, live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, starting Monday, July 13th, San Diego Sports 760 has 9 chances to win $1,000 every weekday with the Bonus Bucks giveaway. That's every hour, 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. starting Monday, July 13th. Listen for the keyword, then enter it at sportssd.com. Again, starting this Monday, July 13th at 9 a.m. So, by the way, great stuff from Eric Pincus. If you're a big NBA fan, and if you want to hear his take on what happens to LeBron and what he thought of the Lakers offseason and can they get Jonathan Kuminga, how about everything that the Clippers did, you can go back on the iHeartRadio app or you can catch it on YouTube. So a couple different ways for you to grab that interview. I saw something here that I'm going to read from Annie Halbron, who obviously is a friend of the show, comes on a ton, joins us, does a great job covering the San Diego Padres for the UT. Just read this here, and you could make with it what you want. And we're going to replay. We talked to Kevin Acee a little bit ago. We're going to replay that coming up here at 5:30. So we'll get a full analysis of where the San Diego Padres are sitting here. But here's what he said. Here's what Annie said. She said, Joe Musgrove threw a bullpen off the mound for the first time today. Only fastballs at about 80% strength, but a nice step. Still working a balance between pushing and keeping the arm happy. Pivetta also threw a bullpen, and he's done a couple times now. She mentioned here, and did PFPs as well. So PFPs too. So I think, listen, I'm trying to find something positive to talk about with the San Diego Padres. And I can sit here and I could tell everybody, well, you know, how long is it going to take? Even if they came back, I'm going to put all that to the side. Just to hear anything that has something positive about San Diego Padres baseball, I'll take it right now. And if it means Joe Musgrove is, you know, obviously threw a bullpen session off the mound, he threw it about 80% strength, he only threw fastballs, a nice step, then I'm going to take that as a positive thing. And if it means that Nick Pivetta is getting a little bit of work done as well, I'm going to take that as a positive thing. Maybe that does kind of change the way you look at the Padres and what they potentially would do at the trade deadline. My biggest issue more than anything else is with or without these players, the Padres have so many holes right now. Starting pitching is arguably, you could say, that's the biggest hole that they have. And there's zero consistency. Walker Buehler looks great. He gives up 16 runs. Randy Vasquez, we know, obviously the issues that he's been having. JP Sears has actually had done a pretty decent job. We'll see what Marquez does tonight when he pitches against the Arizona Diamondbacks. But just to get anything positive on those two players, I'm going to try to ride any of that momentum because, obviously we know how difficult it's been for San Diego to have any positivity. And it's just been it's been tough to watch. So that was Annie's tweet a little bit earlier. I know you mentioned, Brent, I can't remember if this was on air or off air, but you'd mentioned something to the effect of, what they do at the trade deadline. How much is that the confidence that you feel like, hey, they can get Pivetta back or they can get Joe Musgrove back? For what it's worth, I thought that was some good news to get. And again, they're kind of desperate for any good news right now.
Yeah, they'll take what they can get. And, they've got enough bad news. They don't need any more of that.
I know. And I go back to it. It's if everybody's looking, I'm watching a team that doesn't look like a playoff team. And I did mention, and you'll hear this conversation with Kevin Acee coming here in a few minutes, but I did mention, hey, maybe I'm not making as big of a deal as I should about some of the injuries that they have or some of the players that have been missing. Clearly, two of those players. I'll put Musgrove a little bit further out because, he's not somebody that's pitched since October 2024 for the Padres. I was at that game. I was at the last game Musgrove pitched. That was almost freaking 2 years ago. I just feel awful for him and how he hasn't been able to work his way back. But Nick Pivetta was obviously started the season against the Padres or for the Padres against the Detroit Tigers. Okay, Kevin Acee, if you missed that conversation, he's coming up next. Stay right here. This is the Schaefer and Sleva Show, San Diego Sports 760, live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Mattress Firm. The Padres and Diamondbacks are getting set for game 2 of their series tonight down at Petco Park. It's going to be Zach Gallen going for Arizona and Herman Marquez going for the Friars. First pitch tonight is at 6:40. We have 2 finals from the World Cup earlier today. Argentina defeated Egypt 3-2, and Switzerland took down Colombia in penalty kicks. Trouble sleeping lately? Upgrade to the great sleep you deserve at the Mattress Firm July 4th sale. Choose from a curated selection of top brands and let their sleep experts help you narrow it down. They make sleep easy.
All right, we've been told that the series against the Arizona Diamondbacks is very important, that the San Diego Padres need to get back on track. They took that very serious yesterday, incredibly serious, and they lost 8-0. Their bats did nothing, 8 singles. Walker Buehler gave up 6 runs before you can crack open your first beer, and they'll look to get very serious again tonight when they take on the Arizona Diamondbacks again. Am I being sarcastic? Of course I am. Do we all want to see the San Diego Padres get back on track? Of course we do, but they haven't been. They've lost 9 of their last 10 games. And if you missed our conversation earlier with Kevin Acee, truly is one of the best in the business of covering the San Diego Padres. Take a listen, trying to find some positive momentum from Kevin Acee to start off with, but there's a reality of where the San Diego Padres are sitting. Here's Kevin Acee.
Yeah, and after losing 9 of 10 and, kind of where we knew it was going, yeah, I don't see it.
Well, let me ask you this. By the way, I expect nothing different. I have nothing. I mean, I'm trying to look at listeners on YouTube and everything else. Everybody feels the same way. I think for me, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I think there's a lot of times that you can look at the product on a night in, night out basis. You can lose games. It's not that, I get it. Not every roster is created equal. Guys are going to go through slumps. Teams are going to go through streaks where they might win 6-7 games in a row and we feel like, wow, this team is unbelievable, and they could lose 9 of 10 like the Padres just did. But watching them day to day, when you look at the competition and you understand what playoff baseball looks like, how far are they from being a playoff team? And I guess what I'm referring to there is dotting the I's, crossing the T's, coming through in clutch situations. Again, I can make some excuses for the Padres. I think they've dealt with a ton of injuries, but you're watching playoff baseball, and some of these teams you could look at over these last couple of weeks, these are playoff type of teams. How far are the Padres from looking like a playoff team?
Yeah, they're not buttoned down, but they're not getting a lot of opportunities to be buttoned down. They're playing from behind. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, and I think that you're alluding to, like, that you got to win on the margins in the playoffs, as well as, hit homers and, have good pitching. But, like, I can't even fathom this as a playoff team given the state of the pitching. And I would include the bullpen at this point, largely because you're missing 2 of your top 4, and, guys are getting worn down. The middle guys even are getting worn down because of how much you've had to use them. But, like, the starting pitching, this isn't, it's just not even in the realm of possibility that this is a playoff team based on how it has performed as a whole, and in particular the starting pitching over the last month.
So we'll stay the injuries for a second. And you tell me if we maybe haven't been more. I mean, you may have been in some of your articles, but I'll tell you, for me, just with a mic in front of me, I probably haven't been as sympathetic as I should be in regards to how many guys the Padres have had in and out of the lineup. I could go down the list, whether it's Pivetta or Cronenworth or Estrada, Fermin, Camposano, Jason Adam now. You obviously know the story about Musgrove, Laureano, now Randy Vasquez. How much do you think this is their struggles? And they were at one point 10, 11 games over 500, I think 18-8, 19-9, somewhere around that mark. How much of this do you think has to do with just this stack of injuries that feels like when one guy is back, another guy is gone? Just the timing has been awful.
Yeah, like we don't want to totally discount it, but let's not like overplay it. I don't think that it's been overlooked too much. I mean, that's not the way that I see it. Like they had guys, and I'm not saying like Laureano would have had some good, good moments and good stretches, but like, what was he doing this year? And what has he really been in his career that made you go, oh yeah, for sure. Like Manny, right? Like there was always this argument of Manny will be Manny. Like, and I'm a big fan of Laureano and a big fan of what he brought. And I think that he would have made a difference. But like for us to be like, oh, that's such a huge thing. I don't know about that. Now, the pitching injuries, and in particular Pavetta, since he did start the season, I think Joe's a big one based on what you were hoping that he was going to give you. But, Pavetta started the season and supposedly was going to be fine. And he, bowed out, had to bow out after, 3.5 games. So, yeah, there's huge things with the starting pitching, but like, okay, get Freddie Fermin, and maybe he's been affected. Gosh, what was the first time that he got taken out of a game? Middle of April. Maybe he's been affected by the blows to the head more than we know. But like, has he ever been good this year? And I'm a big Freddie guy. Like, man, it's bizarre that he's not better, but he hasn't been. Campusano, if Campusano was going to continue to play like he was playing, then, oh man, that was a pretty big blow because their catchers have been basically an offensive void. But like, I don't know, the injury stuff. And there have been years where I've leaned into the injuries like, man, this team really got screwed. Those are the breaks, but they did pay for it. I don't know, man. I'm just not feeling it this year.
Kevin Acee taking some time to join us. Of course, our Padres insider, Schaefer and Sliwa show. Yeah, Kevin. And part of the reason why you're not feeling it, since they were 18-8, I mentioned they're 26-38. And every day you look at the standings, it feels like another team is just jumping them. They're 4.5 games now back of a wild card, which it's crazy because a month ago they were in a position for a wild card spot. And it just feels like, 4.5 actually seems a lot closer than it should be just based on what we're seeing on a night in, night out basis. But how do you think these next, I know there's no way of predicting it, but you cover the team and you talk about it as good as anybody and you got the insight on it. What's the next couple of weeks look like for the Padres? And, I have a difficult time thinking this is a team that you want to invest in if you're AJ Preller, but how do you look at these next few weeks?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm stalling because I really don't know what to say. And that's my answer, is that I don't know what to say. Because, like, why would you have any faith at all at this point? Now, look, I try to really have perspective and not get lost in the mire. But this mire has been going on long enough that I think it's more like reality. And the wonderful thing about sports is it surprises us all the time. So, hey, go ahead and have that optimism. And look, I'll even have a little bit of it because it's kind of a pain in, it's kind of just makes me despondent to think about watching this team and covering this team the way that it's been playing for the next 3 months. So I'll go ahead and have some of that optimism too. But like, the reality is I think that this has been going on long enough. And the fact is, kind of like we knew it would, if you're paying attention, that the offense was going to become at least okay. And it's okay now. It might even be okay plus. Obviously, today's not the day to talk about that after last night, but the pitching has, that was why in the beginning of the season or before the season, the metrics, the fan graphs, the steamer, all that did not predict the Padres to do well. And it's playing out. That doesn't always play out. The Padres have actually consistently overachieved those preseason predictions historically the past 6 years, but they're basically becoming exactly what they were expected to be this year. And that's kind of what I think they are. So I don't know what to expect the next couple of weeks, except if you're going to make me choose, I'm going to go, this thing's going to go south.
Kevin, how do you think Craig Stammen has handled the losing here over the last couple of months? And again, to have a first-time manager managing a team that has a really high payroll, aging superstars, expectations, but also a lot of holes, right? Like I think like you've been describing, right? How do you think as the season has progressed? How do you think he's managing and handling the losses?
Well, I mean, I'm not entirely sure of like him personally or like how he's affecting this team to be better. That's probably your question.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's more that.
Like, I don't know how anyone could know that. He is doing what he thinks is best, which is to maintain being himself and show his faith in these guys. Could Craig Stammen be doing a better job? I'm sure he could. I've been pretty upfront that I think that they could certainly be more locked down. They could have more quickly realized what they didn't have as one of Mike Schultz's great strengths was knowing what didn't have. And then he was, while everyone was upset about him giving up outs, he was willing to move runners over and try to win 2-1. But here's the difference. Like, that the bullpen hasn't been as good for Craig Stammen as it was for Mike Schilt. The offense hasn't been as good for Craig Stammen as it is for Mike Schilt. And to put that on Craig Stammen, I think I don't even understand it. And I'll entertain a lot of talk because I think that's the beauty of sports and the beauty of baseball is that there's just a lot of layers to it. But I do not understand where Craig Stammen could have helped, Manny Machado's mechanical issues and his offensive horribleness for the first 2 months of the season. I don't know where that comes from. And the fact is, that's far more important to the Padres' success than whatever levers the manager pulls or doesn't pull.
A lot of the questions I've asked so far, kind of more broad, big picture questions. Your take last night, I was joking around before somebody can just park and enjoy a beer. The game's 6-0. What did you make of last night's loss and all the talk about how important this series is going to be in these final 6-7 games, and that's the performance?
Yeah, that's why I would argue that it was just, and it's a nebulous argument. It doesn't really matter, but I would say it was the worst loss of the year. Look, 23-3, it happens. 8 runs given up by your catcher, not just like a catcher who came off the bench, the guy who came out from behind the plate to pitch for you. Whatever. Okay. Dodgers come back on you. That's one of the best lineups that, any of us alive are going to see, blah, blah. I'm not excusing those. I'm just saying, hey, they happen. When you yourself, not us as media, not fans, we didn't put the expectations on last night. The Padres put the expectations on this series last night, this week, going into the All-Star break, trade deadline. And they came out and played like that. And yes, Walker Buehler holds the bulk of the blame. But when they came out and laid that egg, it was wow. And if anyone's been listening to me, reading me for a long time, this is not me. I don't come out and say these types of things, but that was awful.
Kevin, appreciate the insight as always, brother. Thank you for coming on and joining the show.
Right on. We'll see you.
All right, that is Kevin AC right there, handling things and helping us get some insight to the San Diego Padres. Of course, a little bit later tonight, the Padres will be taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. When we come back, I want to spend a little bit of time on that, talk a little bit about this upcoming game. And just, I think we're all spending a lot of time on this, the importance of it, how key it's going to be and everything else. So we'll talk about this game coming up against Arizona and how the Padres can get back on track. Stay right here. San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app. Our final segment of the day. Appreciate you guys hanging out all day. Just don't forget to download that iHeartRadio app anytime you guys want to listen to us on the move. You can do that. Of course, find San Diego Sports 760. Also, catch us on YouTube, Schaefer and Sliwa on YouTube. Padres and the Arizona Diamondbacks tonight. Zach Gallen on the mound for the D-backs. Germain Marquez for the San Diego Padres. And, like I said a little bit earlier, San Diego, the Padres, just trying to get any momentum. It's funny. And it's also pathetic on my end that Padres lose the first 3 games in LA. And I mean, like in devastating fashion. The Teoscar Hernandez, obviously with a grand slam in one game. They go up 6-0 and end up losing 12-7. I sit here all day. I don't want to do it. Then they win on Sunday. And like an idiot, I'm like, hey, maybe a little bit of momentum here. Obviously, we know what happened yesterday. They're so desperate for momentum, and the Arizona Diamondbacks are not that great of a team. Neither are the Padres, but you got one team that's sitting at 45-45 in Arizona. They're 7 games below 500 away from Arizona. And the Padres, 44-46. I know that home field advantage hasn't been what it's been probably in years past, but like I said you got 6 games left before the All-Star break. Any momentum that they can create, I do think is a positive thing. And things can flip on a dime when it comes to baseball. So I'm just hoping that there's some momentum. I'm hoping that all the people that are driving out to Petco Park tonight and are trying to enjoy the game do get an opportunity to grab a Padres W. And we understand it ain't cheap to go to a game. We know that the Padres do so well, but a lot of the reason why the Padres have done so well in attendance is because the product has been good. So let's see what happens tonight. If I'm just playing this off a matchup predictor, Padres got 59% chance of winning. So, you feel a little bit better about that, Brent. I just saw this. I'm going to jump on this real quick because I'm curious about it. Brent, did you see the story about the Big 12 announcing this partnership? All right, let me read this to you, and you tell me what you make of this. In college athletics, they're not about the dollars. They don't care about the money. They'll do everything for free. The Big 12 announced a multi-year entitlement partnership with Monster Energy worth a reported $20 million annually that will brand its sports as the Monster Energy Big 12 football and Monster Energy Big 12 basketball. It will include patches on jerseys and playing surfaces. The Monster Energy Big 12. What do you think?
We knew this was going to happen.
Probably just a matter of time.
Anyways. And honestly, it's no different than the NBA and baseball for that fact. They all have their little sponsor patch on their uniforms now. Yeah.
But they don't call them the, Monster Energy San Diego Padres.
No, that's kind of NASCAR of them.
Mm-hmm.
But, it kind of just goes along with like naming rights for like arenas and stuff. That changes, a lot to where, it can't just be, Petco Park anymore. Now places have to be the Monster Energy, Monster Dome or something like that. So
which I get that, like I understand that, but this is literally is it going to be the Monster Energy NL West? And each squad gets X amount of, obviously that ain't going to happen, but that's a little different. I don't think I've seen that before. I understand it. This is how the finances work. $20 million, by the way, annually doesn't seem like a crazy amount of money to own the entire Big 12. What would that mean for the Big 10 or the SEC? And is that something for the Pac-12 to consider, as they're obviously trying to generate more revenue and try to compete with some of the big boys? But $20 million actually doesn't seem like a crazy amount.
I think it's like you said. I think Big 12 is just trying to, keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, of, I could see the Big 10 or the SEC doing this, but I could see they wouldn't sell the whole league or the season to Monster. Theirs would be more like it's the Saturday afternoon Monster Energy Big 10 game of the week. They're not going to just blanket the entire conference in that, because
it's coming.
Well, they're smart enough to know though that they could do that for multiple sponsors.
Yeah.
You get Monster to sponsor, that Saturday Big Ten game of the week.
Sure.
And then if they have that, I don't know, they're still doing that Friday Big Ten game too. They could just move that to Friday too, and then have a different sponsor do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's I think it's something that whether you like it or you don't, probably something that we're all going to get accustomed to, and the sponsorships are just going to come, and that's not going to stop college football, anything like that. Of doing that.
As long as it doesn't turn into like
NASCAR.
NASCAR and soccer to a certain extent too, to where you can. Like I could turn on a soccer match and I'll have no idea where the city they're playing from is from, what the name of their team is. I can tell you what their corporate sponsors are,
Sure.
But I'm pretty sure their team name isn't the Emirates.
DirecTV, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Emirates. Yeah, you're right about that. Turkish Airlines. I mean, you just go down the list of all these powerhouses from a company perspective. I saw this as well. Giannis will wear number 7 for the Miami Heat. What'd you tell me that there were all these guys? Everybody bought 34 Miami
jerseys thinking he was going to wear 34 without doing any research to see if there was any other Heat legends that wear 34, and Ray Allen wore 34. So Giannis is going to go with 7.
Hit one of the biggest shots in Miami Heat history. I never understood.
And he was also a former Buck, so I can see him just being a solid and just doing, something for another former Buck.
Sure, no, I get that. Something I always found, a lot of people, the numbers thing is I always found funny. There's some people that just go crazy about numbers. It means the world. It's everything. It's this. I'm like, guys, they changed their numbers literally just from a financial perspective. They want you to buy more jerseys and different jerseys, but never meant anything to me. I never paid too much attention to it in regards to that. But for those who care, Giannis Antetokounmpo will rock number 7 for the Miami Heat. What we need in San Diego is for the Padres to rock a couple of W's here against the Arizona Diamondbacks. So we'll see what happens. Obviously back tomorrow. Shout out to Brent for helping produce the entire show and working in the background. Thank you, everybody that was part of the show. Shout out to our guests that spent a lot of time with us. And then thank you, everybody on YouTube as well. Back tomorrow at 3 p.m. San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app.